Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can build one of these simple tote storage racks. This is for 64 liter or 17 gallon totes from Home Depot. I'm going to show you guys all the steps and the materials and make it really straightforward so you can easily build one yourself. The totes that we're going to use to build this storage rack are the 64 liter or 17 gallon totes from Home Depot. The brand is HDX. We're going to be using 6 of these total, and I'm going to measure this off to confirm that the totes you have are the same dimensions. So for width, we have 17.5 inches wide. It is 12 inches tall and 26.5 inches long. So make sure that your totes are the same measurements, and if they are, they'll be good to use for this project. Here's a quick close-up. So as you can see, 64 liter or 17 gallon tote. For material, as you can see, we want 5 2x4s that are 8 foot long. A 2x4 simply means 3.5 inches wide and 1.5 inches tall. And then we also want 4 2x2s that are 8 foot long. So a 2x2 is 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and then approximately 150 3-inch wood screws. Now the tools are also very basic. We're going to need a drill and an impact driver, and then we're going to need something to cut with. I'm going to be using a basic miter saw. If you don't have a miter saw, you could use a jigsaw or a circular saw. You just need something to be able to cut with, and then obviously we're going to need a tape measure, and a speed square is also going to make things a lot easier. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 2x2s, and we want to measure and mark 27 inches. So I'm going to hook my tape measure on. I'm going to place a mark at 27 inch, and we are going to cut 12 pieces at 27 inch. So out of each 8 foot 2x2, you'll get 3 pieces. So we want 12 total at 27 inch. Just so that there's no confusion here, you can see the tape measure is hooked on the edge, and I've got a mark at 27 inch. Now to take this over to our saw and make the cut. If all you have is a jigsaw or a circular saw, you can also use that. Okay, I've got my piece cut at 27 inch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a T on here. This T stands for template, and I'm going to use this to quickly make all the other measurements. So simply just get the ends flush and then trace your line, and that will give you a perfect 27 inch piece, and we can just keep cutting these. Remember to keep marking with the piece that we labeled template. That way you get the same exact measurement on each piece. Line up the ends, trace your mark, and make your cut. You're going to have a little piece of scrap left over. You can do whatever you want with this, but it's not needed. So like I said, we'll just cut all 12 pieces here. As you can see, we have a total of 12 of these 2x2s cut at 27 inch. So that's all done. We can take these and place them off to the side. I just want to mention this. When you're purchasing lumber, especially if you're going to a big box hardware store, some of the lumber sometimes has a lot of humps in, curves, bows, or twists. So what I like to do is take your piece of lumber, stick it up on edge, and look down it with one eye. You want to try and find the straightest pieces and avoid any big humps, bows, twists. So try and find the straightest lumber you can. It's going to make this project a little bit easier. So the next thing we want to do is take our 4 2x4s that are 8 foot long, and we want to mark them at 86 inches. So I'm going to hook my tape measure on the bottom, and I am going to make a mark at 86 inch, and I will do this to all 4 of these 2x4s. I'm going to bring the camera in just to show these measurements. So as you can see, we're hooked on the edge, and we measured up 86 inches, and we drew a line on all 4 of these at 86 inch. Okay, so now we want to cut these at 86 inches. I forgot to mention, I understand that not everybody can afford or has a miter saw. So if you're going to be making your cuts with a jigsaw or a circular saw, the most important thing you can do is use a square. This is going to help keep your cut straight. So if you guide the jigsaw up along this and you hold your square onto the board, that's going to keep your cut straight. You can do the exact same thing with your circular saw. Just use the square to make sure that you cut it straight. But a miter saw is a great investment, and I definitely recommend purchasing one if you're going to be doing more projects. This is just a basic 7¼ inch Ryobi, and it gets the job done. Now we can get to making our cuts at the 86 inch mark. This little piece is scrap. You can get rid of that if you want, and let's cut all 4 boards. So we've got those 4 pieces of 2x4, and as you can see, we cut all 4 of them at 86 inches. So now we can put these off to the side. We should have 1 2x4 left. We want to cut 4 pieces at 18¾ inch. So I'm going to mark 1 piece and use it as a template to cut the rest of them. Hooking my tape measure on the edge, we've got a mark at 18¾ inch. Okay, I just want to show this. The tape measure is hooked on the end, and we have our mark at 18¾ inch. And I drew a T on this piece as I'm going to use it as a template to cut the other ones. So after we make this first cut, we're going to use this to trace the next board. So make sure that the ends are flush, draw your line, and then repeat this process 4 times. Make sure that you're tracing your pieces with that same template piece. And then this last little piece of leftover is scrap. Look at these 4 pieces that are cut at 18¾ inch. These 4 pieces that we just cut at 18¾ inch, we'll place off to the side. Now, grab the 4 2x4s that we cut at 86 inch, and we are going to begin to lay out our measurements onto these. We are going to place measurements on that we will eventually rest our 2x2s on to slide our totes on. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to make all the measurements on one of the boards, and then I'm going to use this board as a template to trace them over. So essentially what we want to do is we want to create 13½ inch spacing coming up from the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write a B on the bottom of each of these boards, and on the top I'm going to write a T. The T stands for top, the B stands for bottom. Now I'm going to hook my tape measure onto the bottom, and I am going to draw my first line at 13½ inch, and I'm going to place an X right below that measurement. My next measurement I'm going to mark is 27 inch. I'm going to draw the line, place a mark, an X under it. Then we want 40½ inches. Draw a line, place an X under it. 54 inch. Draw a line. 67½ inch. Draw a line. And then we want to make our last mark at 81 inch. So I'll bring the camera in and show you guys what this all looks like. Our tape measure's hooked on the bottom. We've got our first mark at 13½ inch, and I put an X underneath it. I'll explain what the X is for later. Just make sure you make your mark at 13½ and put an X under. Then we have a mark at 27 with our X under, 40½, our X, 54, our X, 67½, and then we have our X underneath, and our last mark here is at 81 inch, and that's the top. Now that we've got this one board marked with all those measurements at 13½ inch spacing, what I like to do is use it as a template. So if you have a speed square, this makes transferring the lines really easy. All you need to do is line up the bottom of the 2 2x4s so that they're flush, and then grab your square, hook it on the side so that it's on the line that we drew at 13.5 inch. And then you can just trace a straight line across onto both boards. And remember to put an X under your mark. And then I can do this all the way up on all these measurements. This is the quickest way to mark multiple boards and to make sure that you have the marks all in the exact same spot. So I'm gonna go and do that to all 4 of these 2x4s. When doing this, just make sure that the bottoms are flush and then use your speed square to transfer the line and place the X under. Got all these marked and I'll show it to you just so that you can confirm that you've got the exact same. So just like that, you can see we've got all of our lines on here going all the way up on all 4 of these 2x4s. Now we're going to take 2 of these and put them off to the side, and we're going to grab 6 of our 2x2s that we cut at 27 inch, and what we're going to do, we are going to build ladders. So these are going to be the sides of our tote storage rack. So the marks that we placed here at 13.5 inch, our first mark, and then we put the X under it. We want our 2x2 to sit flush with the top of that line so that it's covering the X. And we want the edges to be flush on both sides. And then we can lay out all of our 2x2s in the same manner all the way up. Here's a look at this. So we've got our 2x2 sitting flush on the side, and it is right on the top of that line. So the top of the 2x2 is flush with that line, and then on the other side we're flush on the side, and it is the exact same the whole way up. So we just want them covering the line, flush on the ends, all the way up. Okay, so now we want to screw these all together. Before we screw, we want to pre-drill. This is going to avoid splitting the lumber. So we're using 3-inch wood screws, and I've got a 1/8 inch wood drill bit here. And we can get to pre-drilling. I've sped this section of the video up, but we're going to pre-drill. And I mentioned you want to pre-drill, otherwise the wood is likely going to split, or it won't join together nice and tight. So we've got this fully assembled, 2 screws into each of these 2x2s, and again flush on the side. Top of the 2x2 is covering that line, and we did this all the way up. Just like that, we are completely done this one piece. We can take it, place it off to the side, grab the other 2 2x4s we cut at 86 inch. Make sure that the bottoms are down, the tops are up. Grab your 6 2x2s and the exact same thing. We're going to place the 2x2 on top of the 2x4 so it's covering that line and on top of the X. Make sure that the ends are flush, and then same thing, pre-drill and put 2 screws into each side. Now what we want to do, take these 2 ladders we made, place them up on end just like that. Grab the 4 2x4s we cut at 18 3/4 inch, and what we're going to do is we are going to place them on the bottom and on the top, and we are going to screw these together so that they make one unit. The big thing you want to remember is make sure you have them laid out where the 2x2s are on the inside. We want the 2x2s both facing each other, and the outside is going to be perfectly smooth. We're going to be using our 3-inch wood screws just like before, and we are going to pre-drill this. So make it so that the 18 3/4 inch piece is flush on the bottom, flush on the side. And then we can pre-drill and screw it into place. Again, we're going to use 2 of our 3-inch wood screws. And as you can see here, The 18 3/4 inch piece is going to go on the inside, and then we're going to screw the other side of the ladder on. We'll work on the bottom side, and then we'll move up to the top side and do the exact same thing up here. Just like that, we've got the 2x4s on the bottom and the top, so this whole thing is screwed together. Now we can move it out of the way, and we have one last thing to do. This last step is optional. You can either use a scrap piece of 2x2. If you don't have any laying around, you'd have to buy one more 8-footer, or you can use a scrap piece of almost anything. So this is just a piece of barn board. We want to cut and measure 2 pieces at 21 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to make a mark at 21 3/4, and I'm going to cut this. Here's a close-up on this. We've marked 21 3/4 of an inch, and we're going to cut 2 pieces. Just like before, after cutting the first piece, I'm going to use it as a template to measure my second piece. These pieces we just cut at 21 3/4 inch. It's not a bad idea to take these and to screw them on, one at the top and one towards the bottom. What this does, it helps prevent the shelf from swaying. So as you can see, right now this can rock. So I'm gonna screw one of these on the top, one of these towards the bottom, and it's gonna lock this all together. To do that, I'm gonna lay this back down on its side. So what I'm gonna do is, I've taken that piece of scrap 2x2 that I had. I'm gonna line it up so that it's flush with this top rail. I want it flush with the side, and then we can pre-drill and screw this down. We're gonna put 2 screws into each side again, pre-drilling and then using our 3-inch wood screws. After we got that top piece on, we're going to move down and we're going to put the other one at the bottom in line with the bottom rail. So just like that, we've got those supports on. So as you can see, I just went flush with the top of the 2x2, flush with the side. I put one on that top rail and on the bottom. Now that we have these horizontal pieces on the top and the bottom, you can also use these to screw into a wall and hit a stud when you're mounting this thing in your house, garage, or wherever you want. Just like that, we've got this all assembled, and we can load it full of our totes. All right, and just like that, we can slide our totes in and out. We can easily access any tote. So thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll do my best to reply. You can build these to fit almost any height, or you could put multiple beside each other to make them wider. You can make a workbench. You could add wheels on the bottom. You can enclose the sides so that they look a little bit nicer. But this was a basic tutorial showing how you can make one of these. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. Thanks a lot. It would mean a lot to me if you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Have a good day.